Very recently, we got word that Suzanne Collins was going to be releasing a new Hunger Games book, and it is going to cover the 50th annual Hunger Games, Second Quarter Quell, and also Haymitch's games. I, like many others, assumed that this was just gonna be Haymitch's point of view. But a lot of people are disputing that, and it's making me question myself.
No! God, please, no!
I'm just a little concerned that it's actually not gonna be Haymitch's point of view. In the video I posted about this a little while back, a lot of people were like giving their ideas of who might be the main character, or like whoever we're seeing through, and there were a lot of really good ideas. So I wanted to cover what some of those are, because in my panic, I went and looked at the statement that was released, and like, nothing was actually said about Haymitch. It was just like, this is gonna take place 24 years before Katniss, which would be the 50th Hunger Games. Like, it said the 50th one, so we know that Haymitch is in the 50th Hunger Games, but at no point did she say this is actually gonna be Haymitch's story, or Haymitch's point of view, which has me concerned.
Nice shooting, sweetheart.
I personally really want it to be Haymitch's point of view, but I do want to talk about the other ones, just like discuss, because I am interested in what other point of views could bring to this, because I know a long time ago, Suzanne Collins, I'm pretty sure, said that she wasn't going to tell Haymitch's story. She was like, that's just not in the cards. She could totally have changed her mind. This also could have been like a nightmare or something. Where I thought that she had said that. But if it isn't Haymitch, I want to figure out who it is. This is all speculation. Please speculate in the comments with me, because I am just really interested. Options for POVs. We have Haymitch, who I feel like is the obvious choice. I feel like Suzanne Collins, even if she said she wasn't going to do Haymitch's point of view, I really think she could have changed her opinion. I don't think she even planned to write this book back when she would have said that. Haymitch's point of view makes the most sense. He is beloved by the fandom, and it kind of feels like Suzanne is like writing these books very much for the people who have already read the original trilogy, for the fans. If it's not Haymitch, I feel like it could be Maysilee. I'm not exactly sure about this one. The reason I'm saying that is because that is the other District 12 tribute that we know of. We know that 4 went into the arena, but we've never heard anything about them. We only know about Maysilee. So it would maybe make sense if we are seeing Haymitch through Maysilee's eyes, because she's the one who is with him the most in the arena. And so if we're going to be watching Haymitch like from an outside perspective, hers makes a lot of sense. As we know, Maysilee dies, and so that would mean a drop-off in her point of view, at which point Haymitch or someone else would have to pick up the torch unless the book ends there, which I just can't imagine that being the end. I saw a lot of people in the comments talking like about Tigris, and a couple people were like, maybe it's Tigris's point of view. This would be very interesting as a point of view, because so far from the Hunger Games series, like, we've never heard from an adult, really. At this point, Tigris would be like 50s, around there. She's a little bit older than Snow. But Suzanne said that this book is primarily like the themes and topics. One of the main ones is going to be propaganda. And so seeing from a capital perspective of someone who's not buying it, who's not falling into the propaganda, would be a really interesting perspective to watch the other capital citizens falling to it. Because I don't see the districts ever like buying into propaganda from the capital, really, like fully endorsing the games. Like, they're never going to do that. They're sending their kids off to it. So it's a lot of the propaganda in the districts is not going to work, except for maybe like 1, 2, 4, the ones that are closest to the capital. And also a lot of people were talking about wanting to see the deterioration of the relationship between Tigris and Snow. We don't know when that happens. I feel like their 50s would be a little late. I'm pretty sure Snow took power kind of young. He had been in his position for a long time by the time we got to Katniss. And so I feel like by 50s, he would have been in a very high position, if not already president. But we know that when he was president, he put Tigris as a designer for the Hunger Games. Maybe if he is newly president, then he hasn't fully lost his relationship with Tigris yet. And then watching him kind of doing this propaganda is what deteriorates their relationship. Watching that through Tigris's eyes and seeing, like, if they're still close, then she would see firsthand how it's all made and the real, like, evil thought process behind some of the stuff that Snow is going to be pushing. So I think that could be really interesting as a point of view. I do think it will lose a lot of readers if she went this way, because for the most part, like, the readership is very broad in age, but seeing as the series itself is young adult, seeing from a 50-year-old's perspective is not going to be as relatable for a really big chunk of the audience. But I think that enough of us connected with Tigress, especially in the movie, when we really got to like see her come to life and seeing how she eventually became like this tiger woman that we see in the final movie. I think a lot of the readers would stick around for it, but I just don't see the connection being as strong as if she chooses a young adult's perspective the way she has with Katniss and Snow. Somebody in the comments put Plutarch Heavensbee. He's, I think, a little bit younger than Snow, but at this point he would not have been head game maker, but he would be on his way. And so he is from the capital, right? Or like, we don't know, but he was living in the capital at that point, obviously, to be head game maker. And Plutarch, as we know, is very good with propaganda. He's the one who helps Coin make the propos at the end of the series. And so maybe watching him learn that process, learn how to make propaganda, if he is, in tow, he's learning how it works and he's slowly becoming more and more grossed out by the capital and what they actually do in the Hunger Games.
This is what you predicted.
That would be a really interesting perspective to see. A couple people were also talking in the comments about maybe it being a game maker. Maybe not the head one, maybe one of the ones who actually works the controls, the people who make the mutts and figure it out and make the arena what it is, which I think that would also be really interesting. I just think that perspective would leave us very limited, because most of the work that's going to be done, if we're going to be watching Haymitch, which I think we would be, or like for a majority of it, kind of the way Snow is watching Lucy Gray in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, like obviously he's not just sitting there watching her the whole time. He has to go do other things, but when we come back to the games, that's the focus. If it was going to be a game maker, it would have to be about their life and them coming and seeing Haymitch in the games and like maybe specifically feeling bad for him. But we would also be stuck in the game maker's room for a lot of the time. And I'm not sure that would be dynamic enough for the story. One comment said Katniss's mom's perspective. I have already said that I really would like to see Katniss's mom in this book, because by the time we meet her, she's just like so far gone as a person that we don't really see much personality out of her outside of her just like grief at that point. Seeing her kind of young would be really interesting. Also, we would get to see Katniss's dad. We know that Katniss's mom is very close with Maysilee, so watching her best friend go into the Hunger Games with Haymitch. And then at that point, we would still be able to see inside District 12, we would still be able to see that propaganda that Suzanne is talking about, and maybe seeing like how it's distributed to the districts and how people react to it. Out of all these, other than Haymitch, I think the game maker or Plutarch's point of view, like one of those capital people, is the most likely. I don't think that these are very likely, but I would like to see Katniss's mom. There were also a few comments mentioning a District 12 escort, like sort of Effie's job. Effie is pretty young at this point, which I thought she was Haymitch's age, but a lot of people said that she would be like 8 to 11 during this time. So she obviously is not doing this job. But that perspective would also give us a really interesting look at the propaganda, because like if you take this capital person who is just like so bought in to the Hunger Games and to Snow and all this stuff, and then you put him in District 12 and make him feel bad for this kid, like that would be a really interesting dynamic. Someone did mention maybe Effie's point of view, which would be really cool. I think that's really unlikely. She would be a little young for this genre anyways, if she actually is 11, but she would provide a really good perspective of how people get lulled into it. By the time she shows up to District 12 to get Katniss, like she's fully, like we see her mouthing the words to the propaganda video they show at the beginning, like she's so bought in. And so seeing how a person goes from maybe feeling bad for these older kids that she's watching in the Hunger Games and being like, oh, like I could not imagine that happening to me, and then like slowly going down this ramp of just believing the Capitol's lies. Like, I think that would be really interesting to watch. And then the other perspective that I saw was potentially Coin's perspective. Coin would be 30s. At that point, I don't think that District 13 would be like where it's at, obviously, by the time we get to Katniss. So seeing that built up and maybe having to deprogram propaganda out of people and like figure out how to instead get them on your side without making them realize that you're, kind of manipulating the story, because Coin does do that very well. She is the flip side of the coin of President Snow. I think that could be a really cool perspective. I just don't know how much story is really there, and also I don't know really what connection she would have with Haymitch. Which brings me to the final possibility. If we're not getting Haymitch by himself, I would love to see a collection of novellas of like the different point of view. So maybe we get to see Haymitch for a while, and then we go to Plutarch Heavensbee. Maybe we go to Snow, like to see the different angles of it. So we could see how the same like messaging affects different people, which I think could be so cool. It would really let us get into some like psychology stuff in these characters. I feel like she could pull off whatever she wants to with this book, and that would kind of allow us to maybe dip in and out of Haymitch's perspective and give us that anchoring 16-year-old point of view that a lot of young adult books kind of latch onto, but still giving us those looks into like people of different ages. Like maybe we see young Effie, and then we see Tigress, and like all these different age groups and backgrounds and stuff, and see how they all react to different stuff. I love this idea. Suzanne, please do this for us. Are there any that I missed? Who do you think would make a good point of view? Whether it's for a whole book or for a little section. The crazier the better. Like I want to hear who could show up. That is all the theories that I have seen for now. Please like this video if you liked it. Click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Katelyn. Thanks for watching. Bye.